Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always exciting to get into a new one.
Today we're going to be looking into what really makes a company a quote-unquote great place to work.
Definitely.
I mean, we all see the ping pong tables.
Right.
And, the snack bars, but,
Yeah.
um, it seems like there's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah, for sure there is.
Much more to it.
We've got some really interesting examples today
Yeah.
from 3 Australian companies to really dig into.
Okay.
Technology One,
Mm-hmm.
Telstra,
Yep.
and Sunrise.
Interesting mix.
I think so.
Yeah.
So,
Should we just jump right in?
yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So Technology One.
Sorry.
This is a software company,
Mm-hmm.
and they really seem to push this compelling customer experience program.
Yeah.
But, I'm wondering what's in it for the employees.
I think that's a great question.
Is this just, kind of corporate jargon for work harder?
Yeah, or do more with less.
Right, exactly. Well, it's interesting because they've actually won the Employer of Choice Award
Oh, wow.
multiple times at the Australian Business Awards.
Really?
So it seems like they're doing something right.
Huh.
And what I see in the research here is their training goes beyond just the technical skills.
Oh,
They're really empowering employees to think outside the box
interesting.
and really own that customer experience.
So they're giving them more responsibility?
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of trust and autonomy, I think, can be a huge motivator for employees.
I can see that. When
Yeah.
you feel like you're trusted,
Absolutely.
you're more likely to
Yeah.
go the extra mile.
And it probably, I would think, cuts down on micromanaging
Yeah,
when you have that kind of culture.
Yeah.
You don't need to be looking over people's shoulders all the time.
makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that's something that's really working for them.
Empowered employees are probably happier,
Right.
more productive,
Yeah.
which in the end benefits the company, right?
Absolutely. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Investing in your employees leads to better customer service,
Mm-hmm.
increased innovation,
Yeah,
and ultimately a stronger bottom line.
makes sense.
So, yeah, I think that's a really good example.
All right, so speaker of challenges,
Okay.
let's talk about Telstra.
All right. Familiar with them.
Yeah, huge telecommunications company.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they had to make a massive shift during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Practically overnight transitioning, a huge chunk of their 26,000 employees to remote work.
Yeah, that must have been a huge undertaking.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did they do it?
Well, it's actually a pretty impressive story of adaptability.
Okay.
They didn't just kind of say, good luck, figure it out from home.
Right.
They actually implemented a lot of specific programs.
Like what?
So they had remote training programs to get people up to speed.
Oh, wow.
They created these virtual support systems to help employees who were struggling. Yeah, and get this, they invested over $21.4 million in training
Wow.
during that period.
So they really put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah, it shows a real commitment to their workworkforce.
It does, even during a crisis.
But I'm curious, did all of this actually make the transition easier for employees?
That's a great question.
Because, remote work, it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, for sure.
You have the flexibility,
Uh-huh.
but also the potential for isolation.
Yeah, you can feel disconnected.
Exactly. And burnout.
It's hard to set boundaries sometimes.
Right. And kind of separate work life from home life.
Exactly, and I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
That the success of remote work really depends on how it's implemented and how it's managed.
Right.
And we can get into more detail on specific strategies later on.
Okay, cool.
But for now, I think what's clear is that Telstra recognized that they needed to support their employees
Yeah.
through this really disruptive time.
Makes sense.
So, while Telstra was adapting to this changing landscape,
Mm-hmm.
not every company navigates these situations as smoothly.
Yeah, that's true.
And that brings us to Sunrise,
Oh, okay.
which is a leading Australian food exporter.
All right.
And back in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
over 300 of their workers actually went on strike.
Wow. So a major labor dispute.
Yeah, and the workers there felt that their contributions to the company's success weren't really being recognized.
I see.
So they were pushing for better pay
Mm-hmm.
and improved working conditions.
So basically feeling undervalued.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually read a quote
Okay.
from a union representative who claimed that Sunrise was refusing modest wage rises,
Mm.
even though they were recording strong profits at the time.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, like,
Yeah, how modest is modest?
exactly.
But what does that actually mean in this context?
And how do we even define that?
Right, because it's easy to look at a company's profits and just assume that they have, plenty to share.
Hmm.
But there's often a lot of other factors at play.
Yeah.
Market pressures, long-term investment plans,
Right.
and, even executive compensation comes into play.
Oh, wow. So this is not a simple
It's complicated.
black and white situation, is it?
No, not at all.
I mean, Sunrise has a business to run,
Yeah, they have to stay afloat.
but the employees deserve to be treated fairly.
Absolutely.
So how do you find that balance?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And this tension, between profits and people
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be at the heart of everything we're looking at today.
It's a recurring theme for sure.
Yeah. So I think things are about to get really interesting.
Definitely buckle up.
It's really interesting to see these two different approaches play out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Technology one, investing in its people, reaping those benefits, and then Sunrise kind of facing this head-on conflict with its workers.
Yeah. I think what's really fascinating is how these examples show just how connected everything is when it comes to employee management.
Yeah.
It's not just about salaries or, perks.
Right.
It's about building a culture
Okay.
where employees genuinely feel valued, heard, and empowered to actually contribute.
So, culture is key, but how do you actually build that? Is there like a magic formula or something?
I wish there was a simple answer.
Yeah.
One size fits all solution.
Right.
But I think communication is huge.
Okay.
Think about how Telstra handled that transition to remote work. They didn't just assume everyone would figure it out on their own.
Right.
They actively talked to their employees, provided training and support,
Right.
kept those lines of communication open.
Yeah.
And that kind of transparency, I think, really builds trust.
I could see that.
Yeah.
And it helps to, navigate all the challenges more effectively.
Absolutely.
But in a situation like that Sunrise strike,
Yeah.
how can communication really bridge that kind of divide? I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like there's a fundamental disagreement there about what's fair and reasonable.
You're right. Communication alone won't magically solve really deep-rooted conflicts.
Right.
But I do think that open and honest dialogue can often prevent things from escalating to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if there had been more communication early on at Sunrise
Yeah.
about what the workers were concerned about,
Mm-hmm.
what challenges the company was facing,
Right.
maybe that strike could have been avoided altogether.
So it's about being proactive,
I think so, yeah.
addressing potential issues before they, snowball into these huge conflicts.
Yeah, it's about creating an environment where employees feel comfortable speaking up about their concerns
Yeah.
and where management is actually responsive to those concerns.
So you think Technology One's compelling customer experience program might be a good example of that?
Potentially.
They're not just training employees.
Mhm.
They're giving them the tools and the autonomy to solve problems and really deliver that exceptional service.
Yeah, I think that kind of trust can really create a more positive work environment, right? Where
Totally.
people feel valued. They're more likely to put in that extra effort and contribute to the company's success.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of communication,
Right.
trust, and giving employees that sense of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
But, we can't forget about the financial side of things.
Of course not.
I mean, at the end of the day, companies need to make a profit.
I do.
So how do we balance fair compensation for employees
Right.
with a company's need to stay competitive and, ultimately stay in business?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Right.
It's a constant balancing act.
Mhm.
Companies have to consider not just their immediate financial situation,
Mm.
but also the long-term impact of their decisions.
Right.
How will this affect employee morale,
Mm-hmm.
productivity down the line?
So it's not just about crunching the numbers.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that investing in your people can actually lead to bigger profits down the road.
Exactly. I think it's a shift in mindset
Okay.
from seeing employees as just a cost that needs to be minimized
Yeah.
to seeing them as a valuable asset that you nurture and develop over time.
This brings up an interesting point then.
Yeah.
If having these happy and engaged employees is so crucial to a company's success, what responsibility do we have as consumers
Interesting question.
in supporting companies that actually prioritize their workforce?
That's a really thought-provoking question. I think,
Yeah.
it's easy to get caught up in the convenience and affordability of the things we buy.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we should be thinking about the human cost behind those things, too.
It's almost like voting with our wallets in a way.
I think so, yeah.
Choosing to support businesses that actually align with our own values.
Absolutely. And I think social media and online reviews play a huge role, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
A company's reputation as an employer that can really make or break them these days.
It seems like there's this growing awareness that employee well-being is directly connected to business success.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's about time we started recognizing that, happy employees are the foundation of a thriving and sustainable business.
This whole conversation has me thinking now as potential employees.
Mm-hmm.
What questions should we be asking during job interviews to really get a sense of a company's culture,
That's a great point.
and their commitment to their workforce?
Yeah, I think we should be more proactive about that.
Yeah.
Gone are the days of just, accepting whatever a company offers.
Right.
We have every right to ask about their approach to employee development and work-life balance, how they foster open communication.
Those are good ones. And, maybe even ask about how they handled challenging situations in the past.
Well, that's a good one.
Like the pandemic or recent economic downturns.
Right,
Right.
because that can reveal a lot about their priorities and how much they truly value their employees.
Okay, so we've talked about, the importance of communication, trust, that balance between treating employees fairly and the realities of running a business.
Lots to unpack.
What really stands out to you from all of this, honestly, for me, what really sticks out is that there isn't some kind of one-size-fits-all solution to this whole employee management thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It feels like every company and every situation is so unique.
Absolutely.
But it does seem like there's this common thread, this idea of respect,
Okay.
really recognizing that employees are more than just, cogs in a machine.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our perspective
Right.
from seeing people as resources to be managed
Yeah.
to seeing them as individuals
Mm-hmm.
with their own needs and aspirations.
And, their own unique contributions to make.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that shift is happening more and more these days.
Yeah, I think so too.
We see companies prioritizing things like work-life balance,
Right.
mental health, professional development.
It's almost like companies are realizing that a happy workforce is a productive workforce,
Yeah,
and that ultimately benefits everyone.
exactly. Not just the employees themselves.
Right.
It's good for the bottom line, too.
It's interesting, too, how this shift is being driven by so many different forces.
Oh, yeah. What do you mean?
Well, it's not just coming from inside companies themselves. It's
Mhm.
also coming from consumers,
Right.
potential employees,
Yeah.
who are demanding more ethical and sustainable practices.
It's like everyone's kind of waking up to this idea
Yeah, I think so.
that treating employees well is just good business.
It's not just the right thing to do. It makes financial sense as well.
Yeah, it's like this perfect storm brewing.
Hopefully a positive one,
Right.
where companies realize that investing in their people is the best way to succeed in the long run.
So what can we do as individuals to support this, movement towards a more people-centric approach to work?
That's a great question.
Is it as simple as, choosing to support companies that have good reputations?
I think that's a great start.
Yeah.
Being conscious consumers, making informed choices about where we spend our money,
Mm-hmm.
where we choose to work.
Right.
I think that sends a really powerful message to companies.
Yeah, it shows them what we value.
Exactly.
And, we shouldn't underestimate the power of our voices either, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We can speak up when we see unfair practices,
Mm-hmm.
support, worker-led initiatives,
Right.
advocate for policies that promote employee well-being.
All of those things can make a difference.
So it's really a collective effort
I think so.
to create a world where work isn't just, a means to an end,
Right.
but actually a source of fulfillment and purpose.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up here, one final question for our listeners out there.
All right, like it.
What role can you play in shaping the future of work?
Big question.
It is.
Yeah.
What choices can you make
As a consumer,
Yeah.
as an employee, as a citizen even.
to really create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive?
I think that's something worth thinking about.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So
s-
we've covered a lot of ground today,
Yeah, we have.
from the nitty-gritty of those different management strategies
Mm-hmm.
to these bigger picture questions
Right.
about how we approach work in society.
And how it's all evolving.
Yeah, it's a constantly changing landscape.
It is.
And I think it's important for all of us to stay curious,
Absolutely.
stay informed,
Keep learning.
and most importantly, keep those conversations going.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.